everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. I have a very intriguing guest for you today. If you don't recognize him on your screen, it's John Sullivan. John was the man who videotaped the shooting of Ashli Babbit, as well as a lot of other incredible footage inside the Capitol on January 6th. So very interested to talk with him, ask a lot of questions. And if you guys have questions afterwards, drop them down below in the comment section. Maybe we'll bring him back for a follow-up, or he can just head on over there and answer them himself. So how you doing, John?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, of course. Well, thank you for coming on. I know that not everybody involved in January 6th would be open to it, so I appreciate it. So you've had a little eventful year, to say the least.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah,
it's been insanity, to be honest with you. I can, I wouldn't have expected it to turn out the way it did, or even predicted the ending or the beginning of 2021.
Yeah, I bet. It's not something people anticipate. So you were indicted for a list of crimes and taking part in January 6th. And you were facing, or are facing, I should say, probably several decades potentially in prison if found guilty. Can I ask what the status of your case is right now?
Yeah, so right now we're basically trying to receive all the discovery, which government has not been really giving it out to a lot of defendants, if not at all any. So we're waiting on that. And I haven't seen any discovery myself, by the way. So I don't even know really what they have on me other than what has been said so far. And then, other than that, we'll be just waiting for the trial date to be set. And also the seizure of my funds, which they took as well. We're waiting to have a meeting on that, which will be like the end of next month.
Okay, yeah. I was going to ask about that because I know that they seized, for anybody watching that doesn't know, you sold footage of Ashli Babbit's shooting to CNN and other outlets, correct?
Correct. And I didn't only sell that. I mean, just the footage of that day. I mean, but still, I mean, they just went in my bank account, took it out. They didn't tell me or anything. Like, I had to talk to my bank over the course of 2 weeks. And finally, somebody felt guilty enough to tell me to call this person, which it ended up being an FBI agent, which obviously I can't talk to the FBI. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to send you to my lawyer, because I was asking them, hey, what do I need to do to get it back? And they're like, well, they want you to make a deal. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to let you talk to my lawyer then.
Okay, yeah. So they seized all of the cash that you made from the sale of that footage, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And so basically your position is they're holding on to it as leverage?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I believe so. Because I mean, the thing is I was transparent with the government on the footage that I took, and then two, the footage that I sold. It's not like they unearthed it themselves. Like, I gave them the receipts, the license agreements that, where I sold the footage. So I'm like not hiding it, not trying to, make it look like I'm this criminal who did something wrong. Like, I'm like, here's everything that I've done. And, nor did I expect to be treated in such a way of, blindsided, and what happened is the prosecution went to another judge. So they didn't go to Judge Sullivan, which is the judge that I'm currently residing under. They didn't go to the magistrate who I met with prior to Judge Sullivan. They went to a completely different judge and got it approved. And I can't remember his name, but looking into it further, it's quite interesting that they went to sort of a right-leaning a judge that maybe people are like, oh, well, there's no left or right-leaning. It's that's the justice system. No one can be political. I mean, it's political to an extent. So I found that interesting that they went that way as well.
Okay. And what was the impetus for going to DC that day? What was your intention? What were you planning to do on January 6th?
Yeah, I mean, I knew about it through all the social forums of like what potentially could go down. And I've been going to protests over the entire winter, summer months and recording everything that went on. I mean, to the best of my ability. And so the same thing, I wanted to go there and document what was happening, also expose what was going to happen, right? Expose, the narratives that could have been spun. And I knew one of them was Antifa was going to be there storming the Capitol. The Proud Boys said that they were going to dress in all black and go as Antifa. So I was like, that's not happening. And I'm going to not only go there and record what's going on, but I'm going to like expose that narrative as well, because they would surely push that afterwards. And so, that's was my intent and purpose, was just to like allow everybody to see truly what was going on, which is why I made it adamant to push myself to the front lines of what was transpiring that day, because there's no way that you're going to be able to show people what is going on from the backs of people's heads. You got to be, unfortunately, in the line of danger, which is right where everybody is committing these acts of violence towards the police, vandalism, all of these things. So I have to be there. If I'm not there, then you wouldn't have seen Ashli Babbit getting shot. I mean, you wouldn't have seen the breach of the front steps and how that even transpired.
Right.
So that was my intent, is to just document that moment in history. Sure, people get by now, I don't support Trump. I don't care too much to, I could tell you I don't support Biden either. So it's not like I'm just like biased towards Trump himself. I just don't care at all. So, I was just there purely just to document, not to participate, not to, be a part of what was going on that day.
So on that point, I've heard that you've never voted and that you say that you probably never will. Is that correct?
I have never voted. That is correct, but not that I won't ever in my life. It's just, as of now, none of the political candidates that are at play do I find interest in, or do I find like I can believe in truly. And I feel like a lot of the system right now is corrupt, and that's coming from both parties. You got to play the game. And so I can't get behind that. So that's why I choose to go a different route.
Okay, so that leads me to another question I was going to ask you later is, what is your political ideology? Because, I'm sure you've seen the Intercept report saying, the enigma of John Sullivan, and you seem to not fit into any one box. And you say you don't like Trump. There is evidence. There's, proof on video of you saying negative things about Trump far before January 6th. What would you say your political ideology is? Are you like a libertarian? Are you more progressive? What do you think?
Ooh, I don't know. ANCAP, anarcho-capitalist, is sort of like, I could go for like, for me, it's just less government control. And also I do like, so you could say like free market enterprise. People are creating businesses and profiting off of, things that they work hard towards, which obviously from me selling footage and doing what I do, I'm very entrepreneurial in a way. I had like 2 businesses prior to, what I was doing there at the Capitol as a journalist. So basically, I totally 100% believe in sort of, you could say, the American way. But as far as like political views, I would like to shift towards like less government control. And I feel like a lot of people now are like kind of feeling that, like, you could say people with COVID and the mask regulations and being told what to do, like people are not really liking that. And then there's also the fact, that people are told to stay in their houses. So, there's a lot of things that you could go on both sides. The police and people being treated poorly by the police, not only like African Americans, but just, individuals as a whole, society as a whole. And so both sides are upset about something, and both stem from the government. And so, I feel like people are feeling suppressed. And so for me, that's what I would like to support, is sort of more freedom and less government control.
Okay. And did you think after January 6th that you would be arrested Did you anticipate that?
Absolutely not. No, I talked to the FBI. I think it was the day after, if not that night, and totally transparent with them, gave them all that I had, and they said they weren't going to come after me. So I was like, okay, cool, that's great. And so that's why I was open with them once as well, because I was like, they told me they weren't going to come after me. Otherwise, I'd be like, hey, I need to get my lawyer here,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to talk to them or him. But basically, yeah, I mean, I never thought I would be charged just because I had nothing to hide. I stated there before why I was going. I stated obviously the day of what I was doing. I documented myself the entire time leading up to the Capitol and afterwards. So, yeah.
So you spoke with them that night on January 6th?
Yeah. If not that night, the night prior, whatever night I got detained in DC.
Okay.
Yeah. So
now, I mean, we can hear you on your video though, and you're, egging people on, you're encouraging them. You were saying things like, let's go, let's burn this shit down, things like that. And then you're heard on video admitting to breaking a window. You offered up a knife to the people who were trying to break through the speaker's lobby doors. How do you explain your statements? How do you explain your actions?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to confirm or deny anything just because of legal ramifications. But what I can say is that everything that I did or didn't do that day was specifically to protect myself from the people that were going to harm me. If they obviously, I'm sitting in front of them with a camera, filming them doing criminal activities, smashing windows, hitting cops. Like, they know like they're gonna go to jail. And I've seen them, and we've seen video at the Capitol where they're beating up CNN news crews, other journalists, independent journalists. Not even, it doesn't have to be a major news outlet. They were going after just independent journalists with cameras. And so, am I supposed to be sitting there and not put myself in a position where I'm going to get hurt? Put myself in a position where, people are going to think suspect thoughts of me, or what is he doing there? Not only people think I'm dressed in Trump gear. A lot of people are saying John wore a Trump hat to the Capitol. Completely false narrative, untrue.
Yeah, I never saw you in a MAGA hat.
Yes, there's pictures going around, but I just like clarification. I'm wearing all black, just like you could say like Antifa, all black. But I was wearing seriously all black because that's all I usually wear when I go out to BLM protests and those Antifa protests, if you want to say that. And then so I was there to protect myself and protect myself from getting hurt. And it only proved. I think there's a video. I don't know if people have seen it, but outside the Capitol, when I left and the police pushed everybody out, a whole crowd of Trump supporters like called me out as Antifa, and like they were about to beat me up. And there's a video online. I think it's by, I'll have to post it on my channel later. I can't remember who it's by, but basically they were going to beat me up. And I was literally thinking that I was going to die in that moment, because like hundreds of people started flocking around. He had a megaphone. He was yelling. He was like, "Are you Antifa?" He's like, "You look like Antifa." I was like, "No, dude, that's messed up that you call me that." And I like played him like a guilt trip on him to get out of the situation. But it's like things like that. I'd rather not like face harm. Like you could say Andy Nago, who got milkshake by Antifa. It's probably on the other side, but the right has their own as well violence that they conduct on the media. So.
Yeah, I will say that's true. I know there's one woman who was there, a Black woman who was, I think she used to be married to an NFL player, if I remember correctly. And she was at the Capitol on January 6th, and they started attacking her. She actually got into a physical altercation with someone, and they accused her of being Antifa or BLM, and yeah, it didn't go well. And then this week, I actually am going to be highlighting one of the cases in my video shorts of a man who attacked, I believe it was an AP photographer. Actually, it was not just him, but several people. So I can attest to that, from everything I've read and seen. So it's
a hard situation to put yourself in. Like I wouldn't, you wouldn't understand, or somebody who has never been in a situation like that really can't understand the gravity of what can transpire or what can happen to you. Like, and I've been to too many protests and you could say riots previously to know what can happen to you. So, I mean, there's people who got stabbed by Antifa, and the Proud Boys, by the way. It's just like on the opposition. But the only thing that saved that person from, getting seriously hurt is because he was wearing a bulletproof vest, and like they tried to go and stab him and it didn't go all the way through. So like, that being said, it's things like that I get concerned about. And also obviously there's guns there and people were shooting at other people. And what people don't see in the video is that there's 6 other people down that hallway with guns where Ashli Babbit gets shot. And so like you're putting yourself in a line of fire, of danger in that sort of situation. You think that you're going to just act like you would act if you were out there documenting a rally outside that is completely peaceful. There's just speakers and, that's a totally different situation than where you're up at the front where aggressive people are bashing windows and they are doing things that they know they probably could go to jail for a long, long time. And you're there and sitting there saying, oh, let me record you. And they're just not noticing you, because the only reason that they're not noticing you is because you're able to act as one of them, right? In a way, not in a way that is sort of you're participating in what they're doing, the violence and whatever, but in a way that they feel some sort of safety, and you want to make them feel safe, even though you might not talk to that person directly. Like I might not have talked to Zachary Alma, right? He's one of the people who got arrested, who was smashing that window. I've never talked to him, but the surrounding and the people around me that were in my immediate vicinity, they were the people who were sort of giving energy to other people. And so if one person gets that energy of, hey, he's not about us, he's not for us, that energy ripples through the crowd, and then everybody's attacking you. And when you're up at the front and there's nowhere to go, like if the crowd decided to tag me in that moment in time, there's nowhere for me to go. Where am I going to run? Through the window where the police are pointing guns, or I have to go all the way out through the crowd. So, I mean, at that point in time, you got to make a decision what's best for you and what's going to protect you and what's going to be able to help you get and tell the story that needs to be told. So
did you go into the Capitol that day with that mindset? Like you knew that was what you were going to do, was kind of align yourself with the MAGA crowd? Or was it something that you just started to do as you saw the day unfold?
No, I mean, I went into it with that forethought of knowing that I needed to do that. Same with the Antifa protests. And people might say that I'm Antifa. Well, that's because I go to a lot of these protests, and that's what I document for the most part over the summer, because there's really no Trump rallies happening over the summertime. It wasn't until later in the year where those started to pick up. And so, yeah, I was out there in putting myself in those positions where, you might think, oh, John's Antifa. Well, no, I'm just trying to document what's going on, because no Antifa person is going to be there with a camera exposing all their other members of Antifa doing criminal activities, and they're being put in jail for that. So like, I can tell you, like, it's a different style when I'm going to Antifa protests and recording, because I can't bring a gimbal and a camera and be out in the open with it. I have to like have a GoPro that's like discreet in my vest, or I put my phone in my pocket and leave it on record to get it depends on the situation. But to give a perspective, I always try to fit the surrounding that I'm in, especially in riots. If it's just a peaceful protest and people are standing, on this corner with signs and they're not really doing anything, that's a different situation. And, you don't need to mask yourself, but you need to mask yourself when you're going into situations where it's going to be some sort of heightened tension and escalation of violence on both sides, the police coming after the protesters and the protesters going after the police or whoever else they're going to face. That's sort of, I went in that forethought, understanding and knowing from prior experience that I needed to do that.
Okay. Now, you filmed the shooting of Ashli Babbit. Did you know in that moment, did you believe that she was going to die?
From the way the officer was pointing the gun, yeah, because he was pointing it with intent. If you watch the video, and this is from what I saw, just being in that moment and sort of the atmosphere in the room, I can't describe it because the video doesn't really do it justice, because you don't get a sense of really how loud it is. You don't get a sense of people are banging on things. People are shouting random things that only the camera cannot pick up all of it. What I mean by this is that when I see this cop coming out of the door, or all the cops come out of the door, I knew from the way that he was leaning into his gun, and I've been around guns my entire life. And, so I know when somebody's ready to shoot, because they're leaning into it and they're squeezing like the handle and the trigger, and they're really getting focused down onto like the iron sights, you could say. And I knew that he was doing that. And from the second that Ashli started climbing through the window, that's when I was like, all right, I got to make sure my camera is like the whole width of the scene, so to say, because what I'm trying to align it with was with the gun of the cop and the gun, or where Ashli Babbit was, so you could see the bullet travel and hit her in a sense. But that was all a split second like decision to understand that. But so to answer your question, yes, I knew that she was going to get shot based on the cop's stance.
But did you think when she got shot, did you think in that moment, or did everybody standing there know, like, was she already gone? Or did you find out late, did you think that she still had a chance and then you found out later that she passed?
I knew she was gone, because when I looked down, it's crazy. My camera just looks down. If you look at her eyes, I mean, you can literally see the soul leave her body, and you can see her body just seize up. And from that point, like I felt that it's a weird feeling. I haven't seen anyone die up until that point, but you literally can feel something just leave the room, and you could see the light kind of fade out of her eyes. And so when I saw that, I knew she was gone. She wasn't blinking. And, a good indicator that you're still alive is, first off, you got to blink, and then your body doesn't seize up. Like I could give an example, like a dog or cat, when it dies, its limbs get stiff and they like curl up into a ball. That's what she was basically doing on the ground. So I just knew that she was gone at that point. There's nothing that anybody could do.
Right. Now, you were heard on your video, you were yelling gun. I could hear you saying, they've got a gun, they've got a gun. So you were trying to warn people. And the officer, as you probably know, just outed himself. He just had an interview with Lester Holt. He alleges that he was yelling stop and go back or get back. Could you hear the officer yelling anything? I know you were on the other side of a wall and a door and, with all the noise, but could you hear anything?
Not at all. That's why I yelled, because I couldn't hear anything. I mean, like I said earlier, it's so loud in there. This would be impossible even if he was yelling, but he says that he was yelling, and you can look at the video, his mask doesn't move. I assume if you're yelling at the top of your lungs, your mask is going to go like up and down in a way, or you can see outline of that, but it doesn't move. But regardless, I didn't hear him at all. So that's why I yelled gun, because I was like, Ashli, you should get out of the window. I didn't know her name at the time, but kind of yelled for her to at least hear it, but she didn't obviously hear it. So that's how loud it was in this situation. I yelled at the top of my lungs, and he couldn't hear it. And she was just like right across from me. So that might give you a perspective of the sort of chaos in that room.
So immediately after her shooting, we could also hear you on tape saying, that's really fucked up. It's in your hands. It's on your hands. It's your hands. Do you still feel that same way, or has your mind changed about her shooting? I'm torn because I didn't think she provoked a warrant for somebody to shoot her. You could say she's in the Capitol, and this is where my dilemma is. She's in the Capitol. They got to that point. Do I think people should have been shot up until that? Yes, I think people should have been shot well before that. They were punching cops. They knocked a cop out on the front lawn trying to get to the Capitol steps. So, I mean, if you knock a cop unconscious on the ground, I mean,
you expect a cop going to shoot you. They've shot people for less.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where I'm torn. In the moment, did she provoke an attack? Did she warrant somebody shooting her? I don't think so based on her actions. But as the overall scheme of things, getting to the point that they did get and getting to the Senate chambers and where it was either the senators being harmed or them being harmed, I mean, I would say that they had justification in protecting the senators because there could have been like, anybody comes through this door, you kill them, right? And that could be a thing. But also, there's another part, nobody heard the officer, so there's no warning. But did you really need a warning because they gave you a warning all the way up? So you see where there's so many things that I can't make that decision. I don't know if I'm able to make that decision because I think that's left up to the justice system. And then also what I think is right or wrong, it doesn't really matter. She's dead and what has happened has happened. Mm-hmm. All I can tell you is that I am torn between two sides. I don't like to see somebody die because any loss of life is tragic. Mm-hmm. But, you know, then there's the fact that you were there to do exactly what you were willing to put your life on the line for, in essence, right? Is, I guess their goal was to stop the fraudulent election or stop the electoral votes from happening in Congress or shut that down. So basically, you know, they were willing to go all the way like that. So, mm-hmm. you know, then is it justified? I would say that there's two sides to the coin. That's all I can say. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I don't like to see loss of life. I'm not happy that she died in any way, shape, or form. I do believe that if it was a BLM protester surrounded by an angry, violent mob, you know, chanting "fuck the blue" as they were, beating on the doors, kicking the doors, you know, and then ultimately breaking through it. If that BLM protester climbed through the window and an officer was pointing a gun, whether they were yelling stop or not, it's implied that, you know, we've barricaded the door, you shouldn't be coming through it. And I think if that BLM protester was shot and killed, people on the right would say, well, it's justified. You know, we've heard them say that so many times when it comes to Black and brown people, that, well, if they had only followed the officer's orders, they would still be alive. Well, you know, or they'll look at their past and say, oh, well, he was no angel, you know, like they did with George Floyd, which is kind of what sparked my whole YouTube channel because it pissed me off so much. But, you know, you could say the same thing about Ashli Babbit. I mean, she has a history of violent action. Mm-hmm. You know, she chased down her husband's ex-girlfriend and rammed her car into the back of it three times.
I did not know that.
Yeah. You know, nobody on the right is saying, hey, she was no angel. She has this violent history. I mean, she was arrested for that. You know, there were all kinds of videos that she posted on Twitter, just ranting and raving about conspiracy theories. And, you know, she seemed to have a lot of anger in her. Now, did she deserve to die? No. I wish he had maybe just, you know, hit her in the arm, hit her in the leg, just to warn everybody and back everybody off. But there, you know, what do you think? Because in my mind, there's no doubt in my mind that if she had made it through that door and he hadn't shot, she would have just unlocked it and opened it up or moved the barricades or whatever for everybody else. And then you would have had all of that crowd, including somebody like Zachary Alam, who also has a history of being arrested for crimes and was clearly being violent that day.
Yeah, I mean, he has a violent history. I looked that up. I was like, wow, okay, that makes sense now what he was doing. But you're right. You're right. They would have gone all the way. And that's where I'm saying, I mean, they had to shoot at some point. Well, I don't know what they're expecting. Like, are you going to make it to the senators and just, are they going to allow you to do that and just rip them apart? Right. Like that's, it's not feasible.
They had nooses hanging outside, you know, it's like there's documentation, there's video evidence of people in the Capitol saying, you know, hang Mike Pence, that they wanted to hang Nancy Pelosi. They wanted to put a bullet in her head. I mean, with that mob mentality, like the same mob that you're worried about, that you were saying, you know, you didn't want them to attack you. Yeah, I have no doubt that if they had gotten a hold of the senators and the Congress people, that there would have been dead bodies. There would have been dead elected officials.